Okay. Well, gosh, sounds like we were talking about the right topic before the meeting started. We're talking about internships and how those lead to jobs. So um, this is one of my passions, so much so that I'm delighted to say that I was able to get one of our alumni, his very first significant donation, has now agreed to provide scholarships to help students in their career development, including internships. So if financial concerns are limiting you from pursuing an internship, because maybe you have a part-time job that you'd have to give up to be able to do an internship, if there are childcare or other costs associated with pursuing an internship, or even the costs associated with the credit for the course, the cost of the credits for the course for the internship, definitely reach out to me, and until we get the career counselor position that Alexis was referring to, get that person on board, I'll be taking care of those kinds of needs and requests. So I do want you to definitely pursue at least one high quality internship while you're with us, because it made a huge difference in my career. He is a Flint native. His name is Bill Ballinger. You may have seen Ballinger Highway. His grandfather helped build the city through General Motors, Buick, and Chevrolet in his career. He was the chief financial officer for all three of those companies at different stages. And Bill Ballinger hired me for a couple of internships, one right after high school, so before I started college, one after my freshman year. He was working for the state of Michigan. He was the director of the, one second. Sorry about that. In any case, then a major recession hit the state of Michigan in 82 or 81, actually, hit the US, but Michigan had a kind of like an economic hangover, so it lasted longer. And so the state of Michigan stopped all hiring of interns. But the fact that I'd had already 2 summer internships made me much more marketable. And so I could get another internship for what used to be Old Kent Bank. They became Bank One, and now somebody else bought them. And then I had 3 high quality internships that then made it possible for me to get a terrific internship with what used to be Oldsmobile. So I think, getting at least one high quality internship can really make a huge difference. If we can help you get more than one, so much the better. Let me just move this out of the way so I don't have to see it. So there's a study by Mount Holyoke that found having multiple internship improved the employment rate for new grads 6 months after graduation. I just had to give a presentation to our advisory board, which is largely composed of alumni from the School of Management. And I was pleased to be able to show that we do have a very high percentage, well in excess of 90% of students having a position within 6 months of graduation. What I don't know yet, though, is, what are the quality of those jobs? Are they the kind of jobs that are both rich in terms of their responsibilities and opportunities for growth and professional development? And do they pay really well? So it's not just that you want to get a job when you graduate or within a few months of graduating. Are you going to get a great job, or maybe even multiple offers so you have some kind of choice? And again, just remember that you're competing with other grads who have probably had more than one internship, but certainly the best candidates out there are going to have had more than one internship. So the sooner you can start making the most of the opportunities you have, the better. I think often students get fixated on the title or the name of the company, and then trying to decide, well, is that something I even want to do as an internship? Some of the internships that I've had and that I've helped my students get that have been the most valuable have not necessarily been the best titles, not even always the best paid internships. I do believe that all internships should be paid. I know that's not always the case. That's another reason for me securing the scholarship money. But at least universities have pushed back and told employers, look, if you want to recruit for our full-time positions on our campus, you need to start also paying for all the internships that you're recruiting for as well. But sometimes an internship that gives you great work experience, great set of skill development is far more valuable than one that pays better. And I know that I'm not just trying to give advice that sounds unrealistic, because I know you have bills to pay, you've got tuition to pay and books and everything else you've got to buy, rent, you name it. So money does matter, but you should always try to balance that between will this internship or this experience help me to be even more valuable, therefore getting even a higher paying job down the road. I think it also is important that as you're pursuing an internship, you're doing it, that you're keeping track of all the things that you're doing. Now, I know sometimes that's not sounding like a big challenge, like it's the same job day after day, but you might have some variation, of course, over the course of a week or a month. I've learned this as I've gotten older, that any accomplishment that's worth telling your boss about is probably worth writing down somewhere to eventually perhaps put on your resume, because there may be certain tasks or projects or things that you work on in an internship that you may not think are all that important or all that valuable. Maybe they're something that was just quite boring, that a prospective employer, though, might say it's absolutely critical that that person had that project management experience, or that they learned how to use a particular analytical tool, or that they've gotten very good at pivot tables on spreadsheets, or I'm just coming up with hypotheticals. So keep track of everything that you do that is worth noting at the end of the week to tell your boss that you succeeded at. And then, of course, you can always prioritize to decide which among that whole list you're going to put down ultimately on a resume. And that's also another benefit of LinkedIn, is you're just not limited by that page limit of 1 page, 2 pages, that kind of thing. The other real benefit is, and if any of you were participants in my Strengths Finder workshop, one of my top 5 strengths and my favorite strength is woo, or winning others over, or networking. And so an internship introduces you to a whole new set of people you wouldn't have had otherwise. And it could be an entirely different industry from your previous work you've done before, or a different kind of a company. You may be going back and forth between the for-profit and nonprofit worlds, because often nonprofits offer excellent internships. They may not always pay that well, but because they're so in need of a lot of skills that they can't always afford to pay for, at least pay top dollar for, they're going to let you do a lot of other things that maybe a for-profit organization won't. But that network is just going to grow exponentially as a result of each and every internship that you have. And another thing that's worth mentioning now that I think about it is, even if networking is not your thing, it's not one of your strengths, it's worth inviting everybody who's a fellow intern to be part of your LinkedIn network. These are your future advisors when you may have to make a decision about which job offer to take. And so knowing who those people are down the road, or knowing them now, is going to help you down the road when you really might need to ask some questions that you wouldn't feel comfortable asking certain entities, especially when you want to get career advice. You're certainly not going to always ask people within your own company for that advice, especially if you're thinking of switching jobs. But if you have that well-developed network that starts with everybody that served as an intern with you that summer. If I'd had LinkedIn back in the 80s, I certainly would have benefited, because I had 110 summer interns at Oldsmobile that summer. I was working in HR. And so one of my tasks, it wasn't my major project by any means, but one of my tasks was to run the summer recreation program for all the interns. That meant, picnics, or, going to a movie or other events, with 110, there were only certain things you could do with 110 people that might show up, plus their friends. that's 110 people that I wish I had in my network now, because many of them have gone on to really great things. And I can only remember 3 or 4 of their names. And I've reached out to them on LinkedIn, and thankfully they either remembered me or misremembered me, but they can agree to connect with me. So again, always take any work assignment you have as an opportunity for networking, including an internship. All right. Yes, we are in the process of filling the career counseling position that Antonio Riggs was doing before he moved on to the university. Thank heavens he stayed with the university, because he's a great resource for us. Antonio has been doing a really good job of regularly sending out all these different internship opportunities that he receives. So he's just disseminating them to all the people at UM-Flint who might be prospects for that. Of course, employers are going to come to the campus to recruit you. But the Career Services Office and the way we're going to be restructuring to some extent within the School of Management is going to overlap with our alumni, the staff people who have responsibilities for alumni relations, because often alumni are a great source of jobs and internships. And so I want them to be working hand in hand with our career counseling position. And I think we mentioned this in a previous workshop. You can also get a headshot for your LinkedIn profile. Although Alexis think you need to start charging at least $5 a photo. You've got expenses too. No. So yeah, come to the School of Management offices if you need to get a headshot. And certainly, as I said in the previous workshop, make sure it's a professional headshot before you put anything on LinkedIn, a high resolution photo as well. And of course, the career services people can help you with that practice interview before you interview for the actual internship. A lot of other places, though, to look for an internship. And I'll be curious to see what success or ideas that some of you have as a result of maybe trying these other things like LinkedIn. Maybe I should just ask Courtney. So how did you get your internship?
Hi. Okay, so I actually I was looking on LinkedIn and Indeed. I found this one on Indeed. I went out to Arizona. I really loved it. I was like, this will give me a chance to experience the new market. It's actually with Marriott Vacation Club. For a Sheraton in Desert Oasis. It's for 6 months, and I'm really still considering it just because there are some moving expenses and they don't cover any expenses for that. So I'm not sure. I have until Monday to decide.
Timing is everything.
I know.
Let's talk after the session.
Okay.
Just email me your phone number and we can talk. I don't know. I think the funds have been received from this benefactor. I'm just not 100% sure yet. I know the agreement was inked by the chancellor with the alumnus for the funds, but I need to find out more. Okay.
Okay, that sounds great.
Send me your contact information so that I can reach out to you after I've talked with our gifts officer. That's great. So you found it on LinkedIn. Right.
Yeah, on LinkedIn has a lot of good resources on there. I didn't use it before, and it's actually really great.
Well, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I should do this so that Alexis doesn't have to remind everybody. If you have not joined the LinkedIn School of Management group, shame on you. You need to join that, because that will help the power of our network. It will help you down the road in terms of internships and jobs or advice seeking that you might want to get. So please join our LinkedIn group, and then ask every one of your friends, every one of your classmates to do the same thing. Do you know how many people we've got signed up roughly, Alexis, right now?
In that group, we have more than 100. Okay.
All right. So we have, almost 10,000 alumni. So we've got a ways to go, 9,900 more. And if you haven't had a course on network analysis or strategy or something like that, you should know that the power of a network grows exponentially. So 200 people in that network is going to be much more than twice as powerful. It'll probably be 5x. We get up to 1,000. I would be surprised if we'd have any trouble getting good internships for all of our students. So please do join the group and then encourage your peers to do the same thing. There's a whole host of other things, whether it's Glassdoor, the ladders, or the websites of the employers that you're looking in. When it comes to faculty jobs, we've got a whole host of portals and kind of not subscriptions, but entities that regularly blast out jobs, higher ed jobs, biz ed jobs, you name it. So that's just for academic jobs. So there's a bunch of others that you should be taking advantage of. And especially you should be joining AMA or SHRM or any professional association for which you have career aspirations, because that's another great, and almost every SHRM has multiple local chapters, right? So I don't know which all the local chapters. I haven't been back home in Michigan long enough, but there's got to be a Detroit chapter, Grand Rapids chapter. Is there a Flint chapter?
There's not a Flint chapter, but there is Lansing.
Okay, Lansing, right. So there's 3 chapters right there. And, my wife, who's a marketing professor, would know this, but I think as long as you're a student member of these chapters like SHRM or AMA, especially for AMA, you often get discounted or free attendance at these local chapter meetings. So it's worth a drive to Ann Arbor or to drive to Detroit, or, you guys could, especially the cost of gas now, split up among, but, one trip, somebody pays for the trip to go to Grand Rapids, because you're going to find 50 or 100 professionals right there. It's a captive audience. So that's just a really great way to start networking. And again, when you're applying for these jobs, then you can also say, well, I met so-and-so from that company, and put that in your cover letter. At least that's what I've done when it comes to meeting people, and then using that information for later on. I don't know enough about virtual internships. I just got to be honest with you. It's a new thing for me. It is going to be an area, though, that I'm going to push, because I know some of our best companies in this country, at least, are starting to develop virtual internships. No surprise, a lot of them are often tech companies. You would think they would get virtual internships better than others. So I may end up doing some work with Google, as it turns out. If that happens, I'm going to ask for each and every one of their virtual internship opportunities that I can share with my students. The other benefit of virtual internship, it doesn't mean you have to change any of your current employment relationships. It just means you give up a little bit less of your sleep or free time, because you'll be doing it in addition. But you don't want to neglect a virtual internship, because it should allow you to take advantage of a lot of geographic opportunities that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So you may want to go home, stay with your parents to save money that summer. Don't assume that means you only can get an internship in that town. A summer job rather can substitute for an internship if you learn new things. So as I said before, I had 2 summer internships with the state of Michigan under Bill Ballinger. And then that third summer, couldn't find a decent internship to save my life, because nobody was hiring in the summer of 1982 in Michigan. Or at least they weren't hiring interns. So I used my network, which included my step grandfather, who was the president of the NBC affiliate Channel 8 in Grand Rapids. He owned a radio station, and he took my resume and shopped it around all of his fellow executives in the city of Grand Rapids. The only job I could get full-time that summer was to be a bank teller. Now, that's a step down. It was both a step down in pay and perhaps in prestige from what I'd done the previous summer. But as it turned out, it was a really good summer in terms of work experience. First of all, I had to demonstrate I had a lot of responsibility, because, and I even put this on my resume, it might even still be on my LinkedIn profile, because there were some days I handled $1 million worth of transactions, and I had to balance reconciling sell my till, as it were, that drawer to $2. So that required a high level of accuracy and integrity and you name it. So I could show a future employee I had a lot of responsibility from a financial standpoint, and I executed it, I would say flawlessly, but not exactly, because they had secret shoppers. So the very first time I got shopped was on the Friday before July 4th weekend. And it was a madhouse. This is back when everybody cashed checks, right, to have money for the holiday weekend. So we probably had 5 or I don't even know, 10 times the normal volume of customers coming through the doors that day. And I forgot to say thank you by name to that person. So thank you, Ms. Miller, for coming to Old Kent Bank. And that was a secret shopper. So I got written up and I didn't get the, I got a score of 75 or 80 or something because I missed the points. I did everything else right, but except I didn't say thank you by name. So the next time, and there's no guarantee, but I did get secret shopped again. And this time I did everything right, including the name. And I got 100 or something, whatever the score was necessary. And I got a $5 bonus. Well, back when they paid $3.82, an extra $5 was nice to get in my paycheck. So again, I learned a lot of really good work habits that I could then transfer to a future set of jobs, even though the job itself was relatively mundane. And once I learned how to do it, wasn't all that intellectually or cognitively challenging. So any job that you do, and if you have trouble figuring out how to take a summer job and crafting what you did for them into something that sounds compelling on your resume, then stop by my office. And once we get the career counselor person, I'll also recommend you go and visit with them because even a job out, if you're doing a manual labor job, there's certain responsibilities there that can translate as well, whether it's safety practices or a lot of other things. So I had my ECU students give me a whole host of mundane jobs, and they said, this is just not all that impressive. It's like, well, let's talk about what you had to do. Oh, well, you were actually handling hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and nobody got hurt that whole summer. There's a bunch of things that are important to any company, even if you were doing a job in construction or whatever else it was. Create a handshake profile. I would like to ask what people's success or lack of it has been with handshake, because I did hear some things from a student focus group last week about it. So does anybody have any experience with that?
Yeah, personally, I'm a big fan of Handshake. I like it better than LinkedIn personally, just because LinkedIn, it just kind of feels like you're just kind of shooting your resume out to a bunch of companies. Handshake, they are actually looking for people from our school. So I find a lot more success with them. And there's recruiters right there. So a lot of the times I apply to something and then I immediately reach out to a recruiter. So that bumps me all the way to the top of the list. So I like Handshake personally for that reason. I've had a lot of success with it.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that, Ryan, because we had it at East Carolina where I was before coming to UM-Flint, but I just didn't know enough about it to know if that's something worth recommending that everybody do. Sounds like it is. Is it hard to create a profile? Does it take a lot of work?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I want to mention too, whenever we have alumni that reach out to the school management about, sharing their internship or job, we give them steps to post it on Handshake. So these are typically like our alumni that are coming back and offering, internships. So typically, if they see that you're from UM-Flint on your profile, they're going to be more interested in you and like wanting our students. So I found that to be interesting, that it's a little bit easier for us, to get those internships in front of students if they go on Handshake and look for that, rather than trying to compile all of it and send it out in that weekly email. I know Antonio does that, and it's a little bit overwhelming. So it's just casually to look on Handshake. I've always really liked to just see what was out there.
Well, in fact, that reminds me, I probably should follow up with you, Alexis, to make sure that everybody who said that they are going to be recruiting interns has done that, because maybe one or two of them have failed to follow through. I'm just writing myself a note about that so I don't forget. And the other thing that your comment reminded me of, so I had dinner with 4 relatively young MBA alumni. Gosh, probably been 2 months now. It's been a while. Can't believe I've been here long enough. I can't remember when I had dinner with these guys. But anyway, 3 of the 4 of them almost immediately said that they would be in a position to hire interns. One person said he wanted to do an internship, and I think he had 2 or 3 full-time positions available at the same time. So again, hopefully you're starting to see that connection. If I get an internship, I'm, probably moved up to the top of the list, to use Ryan's phrase, for a permanent job when I'm done. And there are a whole host of companies for whom, if you don't have an internship with them, accounting firms, for example, it's very hard to then get that permanent job offer if you're applying against everybody else. All right, paid versus unpaid. I think I've already talked about this. Of course, paid's, obviously always to be preferred. It gives you money. But like I said, there are some unpaid internships. Not only is it your only option, it's such in demand. People want to go into that particular industry or that kind of a job that they're willing to work for almost nothing or nothing. One classic example, or not just classic, it's I haven't found many exceptions to this, is if you want to get into the entertainment industry. So I have a really good friend of mine who is a major Hollywood film producer. But internships, even for this guy, even when I'm recommending my students, usually are unpaid because he gets thousands of resumes for people who want to break into either film production or directing or down the road, managing talent, that kind of stuff. So it just depends on the job. But if you had an internship with this guy, that letter he's going to write for you is going to open doors that just almost nothing else will. So there are sometimes occasions where it is worth doing it. And that's, again, another reason why I'm going to continue to solicit additional scholarship funds, so that if you come to me and say, hey, here's a terrific internship, it doesn't pay anything though, but if I get it, I can go work at whatever, then I might be in a position to help that out. But if you're not getting paid, you usually do have a little bit more control over the terms of the internship, how many hours you're going to work. Most employers I've worked with are going to be understanding in terms of not having a full-time 40-hour week internship if it's unpaid. They do realize students need to make money as well. And here's the thing about that. As long as you're getting enough experience through that internship, let's just call it in the summer, but it could be any time during the year. It could be a 10-hour week internship, for that matter, a virtual one during the school year, fall and winter. That's going to look just about as good as a 40-hour week one. Now, someone may push you on it and say, what did you learn how to do? But if I'm just completely hypothetical, but if the only way I can get a job with Intel or Tesla or some other elite tech company is to do it virtually, because I can't go to California, or but I can do it for 10 hours a week virtually, and it's going to be unpaid, that's worth it, because you have Tesla or Facebook or Meta now on your resume. That's going to, again, open all kinds of doors. Don't laugh, Alexis, I'm not even on Facebook anymore, so whatever, man. So in fact, there's a whole new term for their Oculus Rift VR devices that the guy mentioned it last week during the student focus group. I'm going, what is that? Oh, that's what Meta's calling it now. So Meta's part of the name of the glasses that they wear now, or the visors. All right. So anyway, I think a part-time internship, unpaid, with an incredibly well-known organization is probably as good as a full-time paid job that nobody's ever heard of, or again, it's just working it to make money. All right, I've said some of this already. Don't limit yourself to big companies. Smaller companies, In fact, that's some of the internships and jobs that I've been given now to then try to help students fill those jobs are not necessarily with well-known companies. So for example, one of these employers, the MBA alumnus, who's got both permanent jobs and an internship available, it's in a kind of in the startup realm. It's manufacturing. Their clients or customers are both the major auto OEM manufacturers as well as tier one suppliers. So I've never heard of that company, but the kind of work you're going to get to do and the kind of customers you're going to work with, if you want to work in the auto industry and you can't get a job at GM, Ford, or not Chrysler anymore, Stellantis or whatever they call themselves, this kind of a job or internship would be the next best thing. So again, don't limit yourself to only name companies. I already talked about nonprofits. I already talked about keep track of what you are learning so you can put it in your resume, your cover letter, your profile. And with the exception of certain jobs that are really highly, highly tracked, people who want to go into investment banking or maybe sometimes the big four accounting firms, but even with the big four, you can work at more than one of those during college, and it's not going to hurt your chances of getting a job. In fact, it might help. I think it's definitely a good idea to work at multiple different kinds of companies throughout your 4 years of college. I'll put it this way. Every internship I had, except for the last one at Oldsmobile, I learned that's not something I don't want to do that the rest of my life. So it was good work experience. I learned a lot. I developed a great set of skills, but I didn't want to work for state government my whole life. I was very grateful to Bill Ballinger for the internships, but not something I aspired to because of the kind of work I got to do. And I looked at, obviously I wasn't going to plan on being a bank teller when I finished my college degree. I knew that wouldn't pay enough, but I also looked at my colleagues that summer who were branch managers, who were not commercial bankers. They were doing more of the retail banking parts of the job. And I looked at their job going, I can't imagine coming into work every day and doing that. It would be so boring. It just didn't require a lot of, I thought, intellectual capability because it was fairly routine kinds of things. Now, commercial banking, where you're assessing credit risks, you're making deals, you're lending the bank's money, that's a different thing. So I learned if I was going to go into banking, I'd want to do something like that and not go into branch management. So I think the more variety you have in your internships, probably the better. Now, if you find something you really love, then you may want to stick with it. But again, things change, and maybe that great company is not going to be in a position to hire you 3 years from now for that internship you had after your freshman year. Okay, time for questions. And we have door prizes, right, Alexis, for the best questions?
There still might be snacks in the SLM office, so just make your way to campus and go pick up some snacks.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Do you suggest doing internships like during the school year as well, or more just during the summer? And if so, like how do you go about balancing your school workload while also doing the internship?
That is a great question. I wish I was smart enough, even though I have an economics degree undergrad, to tell you what the job market's going to look like, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. But even in the Wall Street Journal, which I'm way behind in my reading, they're already talking about how the great resignation thing that's kind of petered out, and the job market is tightening in some respects, meaning employers can be choosier, tightening from the employer standpoint, not the supply of good jobs, not the supply of people to fill those jobs. So as that supply gets tighter, employers get to be choosier. And so for that reason, you want to take advantage of any opportunity you can. I would completely deny, Ryan, saying that it's okay to let your grades suffer a little bit by doing an internship, right? I got to keep my professor hat on sometimes, but no, everything's a trade-off. And I don't want you to do things that are unhealthy, like, give up too much sleep or that kind of thing. But I kick myself, not anymore. I enjoy the jobs I've had for the last couple of decades or something, but I certainly kicked myself as I was about ready to graduate from college, that I hadn't taken more advantage of some employment opportunities that would have been part-time. I mean, again, it wouldn't have required me to work 20 hours a week while I was in college. Even 10 hours a week would have been enough. And even for a year would have been enough. Here's the example. So I managed to skate past the HR rep on campus because, I can probably talk up a good storm. So I'm interviewing for this job in New York City. It's for a company called R.R. Donnelly and Sons. They used to be a huge company. They did all the Yellow Pages books and major, just a global publisher when printing was before the paperless office finally started to take over. So in any case, it was a premier job. It would have paid really well. And in fact, about the average starting salary, a really good starting salary back then out of college, is about $25,000 a year. In fact, I still remember Oldsmobile gave me a job offer for $24,700. That's about $60,000 a year now in today's money, maybe a little bit more than that. So really good paying job. This job, I found out during my day-long visit, again, the average is about 25, paid $90,000 a year within about 2 years. It was that lucrative a job. So these guys were all salespeople. And yet they were selling enough of our Donnelly services that they were doing incredibly well, which they had to if they're going to live in New York City too, or close by to Manhattan. So anyway, the day's going really well. And one thing that started to kind of give me a little bit of caution, I realized that they were there for the money. They weren't there for the job. It wasn't that, again, intellectually challenging. Once you learned how to sell, you're doing roughly the same thing, calling on the same customers, blah, blah, blah. Until the end of the day. My very last interview was with the hiring manager, the sales manager. So it was his staff. And he said, Aneil, everybody's, said really nice things about you today. And, I think you have what it would take, except for one thing. Tell me why you want to get a job in sales when you've never done a sales job before. And I didn't have a good answer. And the thing that was killing me was where I went to college, they call them student agencies. They were basically guaranteed monopolies on campus. So this may sound bizarre, but back then, Domino's Pizza wasn't in Princeton, New Jersey, right? They didn't have any fast food things except unless you went out on Route 1. So there was a student pizza agency, though, that made and sold pizzas on campus. There was another agency that did all the deliveries of the Wall Street Journals and the New York Times every day. There was a birthday cake agency, you name it. There were about 50 of these different entrepreneurial kinds of entities that you could work for. You got paid an hourly wage. And then as you worked your way up the ladder, then you could be the agency manager where you got a cut of the profits as well. If I had just done that, right, for a few hours a week in college for even a year, I would have had a great answer for him, right? I would have said, hey, I know what it's like to knock on a door and say, hey, you want to get a New York Times subscription, the door gets slammed in your face, go to the next place and down the road or whatever. So it's probably a longer winded answer than you wanted, but if there's something you really want to do, and it's going to take an extra 5 or 10 hours of your time for one semester, absolutely do it, and if it's, a juggling issue, and you want to, and you should want to keep doing well academically, if you take one fewer course that semester to do that internship, absolutely again, because you got to think of yourself, it's the entire package I'm going to present to an employer when I'm about ready to graduate. It's everything I've learned. It's all my academic wherewithal, the education and the skills, things that I've learned from my courses, but it's also the skills and the knowledge I've learned through my jobs. And whatever that total package is, you're smart enough. And if you're still trying to wrestle with it, you come see me, you come see Alexis, you come see our new career counselor, people who can say, you know what, let me help you figure out the calculation here. Yeah, I would do that because one more course in marketing is not as valuable as this marketing internship for 10 hours a week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you want to go into sales, Ryan, and actually that's another plug I'm going to make. I so wished I'd learned sales a lot sooner in my career than when I did learn it. So when I was in my late 40s, 2011, yeah, just shy of my 50th birthday, I left a tech company. I left academia to go work for a tech company for a year. And then I decided, the founder left. He was a fellow Princeton alum. I didn't know him that well in college, but he and I both done SAT prep together, and that's how I knew him. Anyway, he made his millions. He launched a company called Princeton Review. You may have heard of that, and they took on Stanley Kaplan and destroyed it. So anyway, he leaves this tech company, this educational tech company that builds online degrees. I don't want to stay with the company because the president's a jerk and blah, blah, blah. So I decided, and the president agreed with me, I'm going to leave. So I'm self-employed now. I could do it because I did a lot of consulting and executive education previously to that tech job, because I could do that and still be a professor. Now I had to do it full time while I'm applying for new jobs. And I'm getting some job offers fairly quickly, but they're in the wrong location or it's not the right fit, whatever, right? I got to find a way to cover my nut, as the expression goes, to keep a roof over our heads. And my sales ability is critical to do that. Sure, I do a great job when I'm actually doing these workshops and so forth, but I get to get the client to sign on the line first, right? If I hadn't been married to a marketing professor who had had a great career in sales before becoming a marketing professor, I don't know what I would have done. So there are certain things I think you should absolutely learn, and it's rarely taught in any business school. Sales is one of them, right? You may learn project management in your ops classes. You're certainly going to learn accounting skills and how to read a balance sheet and income statement in your accounting courses, how to do discounted cash flow and other techniques in finance. But sales is rarely offered in most business schools because it's typically thought as beneath the marketing faculty. That doesn't take a brain to do that. Well, it does. And it may be a brain that a lot of marketing professors don't have. I'm going to say it's because they never had to develop it, but I think you should learn how to do it as part of your preparation for life. Because no matter what you're going to do, whether you're going to investment banking, whether you're going to consulting, even if you go into accounting, I don't need sales. I'm an accountant. Really? Because if you want to make partner, you have to be a rainmaker, which means you got to sell the accounting services to those clients. So I can't think of a job where you don't have to know some sales and learn it sooner when the stakes are a lot lower than later on in life when the stakes are pretty big for me. And luckily, I had a great guide to help me do that. Other questions? Or have I bored everybody to tears?
I have a question. I want to know, is it possible to make an older internship viable for a job like years later? I am actually returning to the university. That's why I'm looking for another internship, because mine is so old that I don't know if it even matters anymore.
Is what you learned still valuable as a set of skills, Courtney?
Yes and no. So originally it was at the Flint Institute of Arts with the event coordinator. So a lot of the things we were doing, it's kind of outdated now, just because, we have social media, which we did have then, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now. So a lot of things we could have done differently and processes. So I did learn some core competencies with that. But as far as some processes could be improved by now, obviously, with the advances in technology.
Although, I don't know a ton about event coordinating, but I would assume the shoe leather or the interpersonal skills or the things like that to make an event successful, that hasn't gone away, right? That's still...
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right. So again, it's worth having a conversation with me or others in the school to say, this is where you need to spend some time with the career services group of people, both, I call it main campus, everything besides the school of management. So where Antonio resides now. And then when we get our career counselor position, and just walk them through what you did, because I think you'll I think students especially, or young people, I should say in general, I think you undersell yourselves. I think you probably know a lot more than you give yourself credit for, and you're already discounting, Courtney, the fact that it's okay, it happened years ago, so it's probably not that. Well, some things are incredibly valuable. I don't care how old the job was. This is kind of a tangent, but I still remember I was giving a lecture when I was at Penn State. I was a junior professor there, and I'm talking about different sources of power people have, how they can be influential. And I'm an idiot, so I put down the list of sources of power, but I put down, because it's what I'm taught as a doctoral student. I have to cite it properly, so I put the name down, French and Raven, and the year that they came up with these types of power, like 1955. And I still remember one of my students, wisecrack, well, why do we need to learn that if it's 50 or 40 years old at that point? That can't be valuable anymore. And luckily, I don't always have a great response or rejoinder when people, wisecrack. I said, oh, really? So do you tell your accounting professors that you don't care about debits and credits because that was invented, in the 1800s or something? So if it's still a valuable thing, who cares how old it is, right? So don't discount it, but pull out the stuff that's still valuable. And the other thing is to look at whatever that is and be more generalizing about it, to say, what did I learn about event coordination that I can apply to any job, right? Just like sales skills you might have gotten from one internship, that applies to a whole bunch of other things. The interpersonal skills, the organizational skills, the communication skills, whatever that, even though I know the communication part is, gotten modernized with social media and the internet, but there's certain things that are going to be transferable across, regardless of how long ago you learned it.
Yeah, I have another
I
question.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Good.
I have another question.
I just wouldn't say, I recommend using GeoCities as a way to market your, because that thing got obliterated by Facebook and a bunch of other social media organizations. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, kind of going off what you just said. So a little bit of a background about me is, so I'm in operations and supply chain management. So last year I started my own business. So in terms of what you're saying, I kind of have like a blank sheet. Like there's so much stuff I could say because I do kind of every part of the business, sales, accounting, all of that. So, but my question is there such thing? I always worry that what if I I talk myself up too much, if that's the thing, because I'll look at people from high school and I worked in a factory and I was managing temps and stuff like that, but it was just the bottom of you were basically a temp, like a glorified temp. Right. And people, I go on LinkedIn in it and they put TM Shea intern. And so it's well, that's not what that was. So I just worry about that.
That's a great question. I wish I had a terrific answer. I think I've got an okay answer. And that is, certainly you never oversell yourself. So don't say you know how to do something that you don't know how to do, right? And it's okay to say, I learned the first 3 steps of putting together, a business proposal or a pro forma or whatever else, whatever the task or project or assignment might be. I don't know all the pieces of it, but here's how much I did do of it. But, whether you're a temp or not, and you are responsible for other people, you are managing people, right? So, when I was the summer intern at Oldsmobile, I had my primary job in HR to do a bunch of things, which was to assist the HR professionals. Then I had a major project that I was given, which is wonderful, that the head of HR for all of Oldsmobile, which back then was, a much bigger entity than any of the car divisions are now, like Cadillac and so forth. So it was one of the major business groups within General Motors, and the head of HR wasn't going to get his annual bonus unless the project I worked on came off successfully, because he was off at Stanford for 2 months for some executive ed program. But he had to do a survey of employees' attitudes on quality and other things. And my boss, he said, Aneil, this is your job. I know you know how to do it, or you're going to learn how to do it, but this is your thing. On the other hand, I had 110 students, and I created a steering group of about 15 of them to organize this whole summer program, so the social program kind of thing. And if I hadn't created this steering group and a bunch of other kinds of things I put together, I would have done what the previous HR intern did, that was predominantly his job, was just managing the summer recreation kind of or social program, and then doing some help on a day-to-day basis for the HR professionals. If I hadn't created a structure then, created a team, I couldn't have done my big project and also done really, really well on this summer social program kind of thing. So you can bet I told the world I know how to create a team out of nothing and getting it rapidly launched and delegating, and because there was a billion different activities or tasks that we had to do. So we had an end of the year end of the summer banquet. I don't want to get into all the boring details, but if I hadn't learned how to manage people who were not formally reporting to me, I couldn't have done it, right? So I could then tell people for my permanent jobs I was going to apply for that senior year of college, yeah, I managed a team of 15. It wasn't full-time, but here's what we got accomplished. And then they could say, well, he only did part of his job and he got that accomplished. Imagine if he had a bunch of people to, manage full-time, what he could get done. See the kind of logic you're building up. So when you have to keep it all yourself, your company, you're wearing a lot of hats, and it's not just the separate different hats. It's finding ways to get those things to work together on an hourly, daily, minute by minute basis. That is a great set of skills right there. Just that meta organizational skill of keeping that together. That's worth, telling the world about.
Yeah, it's been interesting because especially on like LinkedIn, I'm getting a lot of traffic, but it's not the recruiters that are in like operations and supply chain. It's all people that want me to like run their franchise for like the Metro Detroit area and stuff like that. But it's not what I'm looking for right now. Like I'm trying to branch out and really use my degree. So it's just, I got to tell a slightly different story, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because I do a fair amount of work, or I did, with 2 Minute a Truck. So they have over 400 franchises now. So I work primarily with the home office, as they call it, headquarters, because I know the founding family, which they've since sold the company a few months ago. But I've also done work with about a dozen of their franchises. So that's something you and I could talk about some other time, but I wouldn't discount franchising as, at least at some stage in your career, a valuable thing to pursue, because franchising is neither corporate nor entrepreneurship. It's kind of a hybrid. And so there's some real benefits to doing that for a certain period of time. I will tell you, if you want a license to print cash, go become a Chick-fil-A franchisee, especially in the Midwest where it hasn't been built out yet. My wife and I, we thought, not so jokingly, maybe in our semi-retirement, we're going to build out a Chick-fil-A franchise where we want to retire, because they don't have one there. And everywhere in the South, even though there's a billion of them, the lines are out the door, not out the door, the car lines are like, I think it's crack cocaine is what they put in the chicken, their chicken nuggets or whatever, because my kids got addicted to it from, an early age in life, and they still love them. It's like, really? They're good, but they're not that good. No, Dad, they're the best, and they're in their 20s, right? So no, I don't get paid by Chick-fil-A, by the way. I'm not a consultant. So, that's an unbiased recommendation.
Oh, I'm the same way. I think it tastes better in the South, though. I don't think they taste as good here in Michigan, but I've had it since I was a kid too. So I'm the same way.
Okay. Well, that may be true. I don't know. I guess they have to ship the frozen nuggets or whatever. Well, no, they're not. Whatever. I don't want to go into the details, but so any other questions? We got a couple more minutes left. Well, okay. Thanks for attending this month's Dean Career Conversation. Because I suck at marketing and sales, I don't have next month's topic yet picked out, so I can't sell it to you yet, but I will get it out there in the next week or so, next couple of weeks. And with Alexis's help, we'll get it baked. But I hope you guys are finding these things useful. I certainly am enjoying the chance to get to know some of you this way. Well, have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Good luck on exams.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Make sure you register for fall courses.
Have a good evening.